Coming up on the show, we chat to Red Bull racer Paul Bonhomme. We check out the awesome Jet Provost Strike Master, and DC goes for a spin with Ultimate High. Hi and welcome to Loop TV. This is our new monthly show where myself, Dave Calderwood and Richard Fairburn will be bringing you the latest news, exciting metal, brand new gear and talking to those that inspire us to get airborne. First up, Red Bull recently announced the details of 4 new rookie pilots joining the circuit for the 2009 season. Alongside the rookies, Britain's Paul Bonhomme will once again be flying the flag and hopes to do better than his 4 wins in 2008. Paul did extremely well with wins in Abu Dhabi, San Diego, Rotterdam and Perth. The disqualification in Porto and pulling out the race in London handed Austrian Hannes Arch the title. We managed to track Paul down just before he started his pre-season training to find out a bit more about him and his flying outside of Red Bull.
It's World Series and Paul Bonhomme.
I consider myself very lucky. My father was a pilot, my mum was a stewardess. That sort of sowed the seed. And to get from home to school took me past White Waltham Airfield. So as a sort of 14, 15-year-old, I used to dive in there at the end of each day of school and just help out, and that really cemented my interest in flying. The real sort of catalyst was flying with Richard Good. He used to fly at White Waltham and I used to sort of help out and clean the aeroplanes and that sort of thing. And in exchange for my help on his aeroplanes, we'd go flying in his Stomp or S2 pits. His sort of flying was fairly extreme, and that to me became the norm, you know. And so I think that's what helped out really, being exposed to some very interesting sorts of flying very early on. Steve Jones and I, we'd been flying as the Matadors in China and Japan and places like that with the FAI World Grand Prix. And also flying with that was Peter Besnier. And he obviously has big links with Red Bull and was sponsored by them. And he and the boss of Red Bull sort of started the project, I think back in 2001. And we haven't looked back from there really. You know, I've taken part in every single race, as has Steve up until now. I think the Edge is a wonderful aeroplane. It's like a go-kart. When you climb in it, it fits well, it's pretty snug. But when you take off, everything is just absolutely, you're in direct control of it. There's no slack in the controls, there's no mush in anything. It is just like being in an airborne go-kart. 2008, the highlights were basically the start of the season, you know, winning 3 out of 4 races, that was good. The win in Perth at the end was good, that was quite good to beat Hannes in the last race, you know, even though he'd won the championship. So the highlights of the wins. Low lights, if you like, are, you know, the London race. That was a tactical error on my part by trying too hard in the Super 8s. I should have just had a plod round really. And then obviously the DQ in Porto was a pretty miserable weekend as well. And the frustration was that, you know, we're talking a 1/10 of a second, you know, so, and the rules are the rules, but you've got to bounce back from these things happen, and it's not the end of the world. You know, and going back to Perth and winning there seemed to do the trick. It's quite nice actually. I think it's good for you actually. A bit of G, good cardiovascular exercise. I think the statistic that impresses me most about this airplane is you can get from 1 G to 12 G in 0.4 of a second. You know, when people say you were 1/10 of a second over in Porto, you fool. I say, well, go and you can have a go. See if you can pull 12 G to 1/10 of a second. We didn't do a huge amount to the engine. We did a few little tweaks. We put some bigger wingtips on. We did quite a lot of work to the engine cowling, saved an awful lot of drag. Maybe we didn't move fast enough mid-season with mods. So maybe we should plan for next year some sort of ongoing changes to keep us competitive throughout the year.
So that sounds quite secretive. Do all the pilots keep their
that's about as much
belt?
as you're going to get from me. You won't get any more than that. Secret squirrel stuff. The aeroplane's on its way to California now. We might be doing some stuff to the engine. We might be doing some stuff to the airframe. And I think the key is to be able to look forward to it and look back on it with a smile rather than just rush from one thing to another. So that's what I'm looking forward to next year.
Best of luck, Paul, for the 09 season. We'll be following you all the way. If you want to see more of Paul, you can see the full interview online at luketv.aero and then click in the interview tab. Next up, if you've got a PPL but want to fly a jet, well, Swords Aviation, based at Northfield, may have the thing for you. We sent Loop's Richard Fairburn and flight tester Bob Davey down to the airfield to investigate.
Now, you know, at Loop we love flying old warbirds, and usually that means Nangchangs and Yaks, World War II era machinery. Today we've got something completely different, the chance in the UK to fly an ex-warbird jet. We got Bob into what must be one of the most pristine JPs in the world. It's an ex-Yemeni Air Force Mark IV run by Swords Aviation out of Northfield. It's got less than 1,800 hours on it in total, and it's now run under a CAP 632 regulation, which means even a low-hour PPL holder can get into it.